operating cash flow and reinvest it back into our assets, we have a sustainable future. We were anticipating producing 50 to 70,000 ounces. We ended up producing 136,000 ounces. We just completed a deal with Marathon Gold to acquire the Valentine Gold Mine in Newfoundland, Canada, which completely transforms the company.
Calibre Mining is reshaping the landscape of gold production.
One of the things that's pretty exciting that we're looking into now is artificial intelligence such that it learns how to identify gold deposits.
Building long-term sustainable value for shareholders and local communities.
Governments will come and go. Communities will not.
We can unlock value because we're diversifying the portfolio. This year we're going to produce 275 to 300,000 ounces.
Hi, I'm Jim Gordon here in the offices of Calibre Mining, located at the foot of Burrard Street in downtown Vancouver. Coming up, we'll talk to a couple members of the Calibre team about their history, where they've been, where they're going. Calibre Mining are in the spotlight next. Senior Vice President of Development and Investor Relations, Ryan King. Ryan, let's start with some background on Calibre Mining. Let's talk about its beginnings and the people that were there at the beginning for its launch.
Well, in fact, Calibre's been around for, if we look back when it was originally named TLC Ventures Corp.
TLC Ventures.
Back in 2005 was when the company started. And so, these types of ventures, they'll go through a lot of different iterations and restructuring.
Right.
So Calibre became Calibre in 2007, 2008, when the company acquired assets in Central America, exploration assets at the time. And so, back then it was Doug Forrester, our lead director, Blaine Johnson, chairman, different set of management at that point in time. But myself, I was in there as an officer of the company. And I just remember those days. It was early days and it was excitement because we were entering into a new jurisdiction.
Yeah.
We were entering into a new phase of exploration, but it was also challenging because we were entering into the great financial crisis.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
So, but then many iterations we've gone through to the big one, which was in 2019.
Yeah. Let's talk about that year. Companies go through challenges. Looking back, and you cite 2019, talk a little more about that and how the challenges you rise to the occasion, but it made the company better than what it is today.
Yeah, 2019 was a very significant year for us. We had just completed a restructuring, so restructuring our share structure and bringing on a new team because we wanted to go out and acquire gold production, right? So the company, just exploration, had to find ounces in the ground, had identified new areas, but the big shift was going from exploration to production. And 2019 was that year that we were able to strike a deal with B2 Gold to acquire their producing assets and transform the company.
Again, sticking with challenges, of course, the last 4 or 5 years have been challenging for every business. With COVID, we had lockdowns. Looking at 2019, what you did, then 2020 hits. With your properties in Central America, in Nicaragua, in Nevada, in Newfoundland, here in Canada, how did the first couple of years of that, 2020, 2021, talking about challenging and having to pivot and keep going?
Yeah.
Talk about that period with what you guys were doing in various parts in North America.
Well, it's a critical component to all businesses, right? We all went through it.
Yeah.
Now, every jurisdiction handled it differently, right? And every business handled it slightly differently.
Yeah.
What we did was we actually had a shutdown. We went through a full shutdown for a period of, I think it was about 3 months.
Okay.
So you think about that, a new company just acquired producing assets. In order to stay afloat, you need to continue to generate revenue.
Right.
And yet, I think at the time, we actually offered to ensure that all employees were continuously paid, but we had no revenue coming in.
Right.
It was a challenging time.
It says a lot, though,
Yeah.
doesn't it, about a company when you do that, when no money is coming in, but you want to make sure the employees are looked after.
Well, and from our perspective, human capital is, if not the most important, it is a critical asset within any business.
It leads me into my next question. You may have answered part of it. We talk about the main values and principles that guide Calibre Mining. Clearly, that is one example of the way you guys think.
Yeah. When we look at our business, and I'm speaking on behalf of the CEO because Darren Hall has got so much experience as a leader and a manager He's got so much expertise when it comes to technical and production and leading people that he's done such a good job of cultivating an environment that is acting like owners, right? We all act like owners, working and acting like owners. So, a big part of our mantra is not only acting like owners, but taking ownership in the shares of the company as well. So it's such that we do act more so like a real owner of the business. And another one is being friends with everyone and aligned with no one, right? It's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that.
We're friends with everyone, so we treat everybody with respect. There's no such thing as a casual conversation, right? But we can't find ourselves being aligned with opposition or pro something. We're just friends with everyone.
Okay. Again, you've answered part of this, but talk more about the hardest part of running a successful mining company.
Well, there's many different aspects, I think, that are hard. There's always pros and cons with a business. In the mining sector, we are, let's take it from grassroots principles, right? A mining project is something that where a company will come along and drill a whole bunch of holes in the ground, identify or not, but in this case, being a mining company, we've identified material in the ground that could be economic. We go through all the engineering phases of that. And then you get in there and you open it up and you start mining the material. It has to be there. What is expected to be there or anticipated to be there based on all the drilling and economic studies. So you have challenges when you get in there and start mining, and you have to adapt. You either have to mine more or you have to go to different areas within the mine. So there's always those operating challenges.
Right.
But a big one, I would say, I come back to this human capital piece. It's really important because, you could be going along, everything going very smoothly, and then you lose a critical person within the business and things start going sideways. When you have a solid team in place, and particularly a solid leadership team in place, they can help direct traffic or guide the ship in the right direction. And so the leadership, I think, is really critical in any business. I'm talking about leaders on the ground in Central America, leaders on the ground in Nevada, to help ensure that people are acting like owners. They are taking responsibilities for they're ensuring that authorities are in place or accountabilities are in place and measuring folks against those critical elements.
Which would lead me to my next question. You're doing this wonderfully, but is the communities. Let's talk about this. You go back 60, 70, 80 years, this is not a question we'd be asking, but treating the human element is making sure that the communities have involvement and say.
Yeah.
Talk about that process, because that's a big part.
Well, it's a huge part. It's a huge part. Governments will come and go. Communities will not. They will always be in your backyard. We will always be in their backyard. And so transparency is so paramount to how we do our business. Transparency in what we're going to do, transparency in what we have done. So that is where your relationship with community leaders is so critical. Taking them to the assets, showing them what they're going to be doing, showing what potential involvement they may have in those assets, i.e. jobs, training. We ensure that we bring a level of jobs and training to those communities. We ensure that, if we're looking for new employees, whether it be a satellite deposit in Central America or a new asset in Newfoundland, Canada, we ensure that we can try to, the best of our abilities, employ locally. Because when you employ locally, it actually does your business a real service. They become ambassadors for the asset. They become ambassadors for your business. And they get to understand who we are and how our culture is. And that may benefit us or the whole community, right? So it's really about that the transparency, working closely with the community and the government, but more so interacting with the people that may get hired, and what they then turn around and do within the community as a representative of the business.
Ryan, as someone who's been on the equity side of the mining business for over 20 years, what is it that you look for in an investment?
Well, first and foremost, I look at the management team and the board, the founders. Do Do they have a track record? What is their track record? Is it success? How do they get out of businesses? And do they stick with the businesses through time, through ups and through downs? And that's what you get with Calibre Mining, a team that has stuck with this business, restructured the business, but also, really importantly, significant investment by the senior team and the board into the business, right? That's really critical for me, looking at any sort of business, but particularly in the mining business, a group that has big investments of their own capital into this type of an adventure.
You did mention what a solid, experienced team you have, including yourself. Talk a bit about your leader, your president, CEO, and director, Darren Hall.
Yeah, I mean, Darren is a unique individual. He brings so much to the mining space. 30 years as an operator with Newmont, and his roles and responsibilities increased over time because he's a thought leader. He looked at things differently. He's not afraid to speak up when he sees opportunities to optimize cash flow or optimize production at an asset. When he left the business, when he left Newmont, he was overseeing probably 40 to 50% of Newmont's EBITDA, overseeing 15,000 employees and about 7 or 8 operations in Asia Pacific. So he brings a tremendous amount of expertise and management leadership to our business, to Calibre's business.
President, Director, and CEO of Calibre Mining, Darren Hall. Darren, talk about your history, your experience, and how that's helping to lead Calibre Mining right now.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and appreciate you taking the time. So a little bit of history. I spent 30 years with Newmont, looking after a number of operations around the world before joining this family of companies in 2015. The majority of my time has been pretty close to the operating end of things, exploration, project development, and it's ranged from building new mines to optimizing existing assets, and that's really where my focus has been. So it's very much akin to what we've been able to do with Calibre over the last few years, and taking some of those learned experiences and then making them fit for purpose for the opportunities that sit in front of Calibre.
Ryan talked about your impressive and successful track record. Part of that track record includes promoting health and safety, and of course the environment. Talk about how you're making sure that methods to protect the environment are being implemented and acted upon.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And again, it's one of those. It's a value, right? If we talk about safety, health, the environment, and what I've always found is that people typically act in their own best interests. So, if we can get people coming to work, acting like owners, taking care of themselves, they're going to make really good in business decisions as well. So when it comes to safety and health, nothing's more personal than your own well-being. So what we need to do is ensure that people come to work focused on those aspects. And it's less about talking about safety than it is talking about the issues that impact their ability to make good decisions. So if someone comes to work and makes a decision that hurts themselves, well, then how can we help? How can we hope to get a good business in play? So it's creating the environment that allows people to be able to raise issues, get them addressed, and speak about what's on their mind, so they can come to work fully engaged. And again, safety and health is a good lead indicator for the rest of the business, and that relates into the environment as well, right? Is that people want to be associated with something they can be proud of. And environment is a keen part of that, particularly in today's world. So we want them to raise issues, we want them to have them addressed, we want them to feel part of. And it's really keenly is making that environment so we can leverage off the full potential of the human capital that we bring into the business.
And Darren, what are Calibre Mining's 3 biggest strengths?
Yeah, well, Jim, and to lead on from just the previous conversation, our number one asset is our people. Right. And, we have a large number of employees, we have a large number of business partners. And if we can develop an environment that allows those people to come to work and contribute to their fullest, we're going to end up with an optimal product. We can't change what's in the ground, but we can optimize what's in the ground by people making really good decisions and continuing to look for opportunities to improve the way we do business. So again, people is number one. A big part of our opportunity that sits in front of us is that our continued diversification of our portfolio. So as we progress as a company and we we work towards developing and bringing Valentine into production over the next year. We're going to see, roughly 50-60% of our mining NAV moving into specifically the US and Canada, which is a great opportunity for our shareholders and all of our stakeholders. Part of the reason we've been able to do this is our exploration success that we've had in Nicaragua, and we continue to see in Nicaragua and Nevada and now Newfoundland. So, we've got a very significant resource base with huge potential to be able to grow from. So, kind of working backwards, if you will, we've got a great natural resource. We've got an evolving company which is growing its NAV into what is anticipated to be we'll call it tier 1 jurisdictions from an external stakeholder perspective, and we'll be able to maximize the full potential from those two components because we'll have an engaged workforce that's acting and contributing like owners.
And as someone who has been around the mining business for many decades, talk about some of the future risks or threats that you perceive to your business and how Calibre Mining is getting ready to counter them.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it's many decades. You're starting to age me there, Jim, and that's a bit concerning. But if I think about it, it's a cyclical business, right? Sometimes we have higher prices, sometimes we have lower prices. So what we need to ensure is that we can create a business that's robust, can generate cash, and can build a stronger treasury quarter on quarter, regardless of what the prices are. So as we're price takers in the space, it's all about reducing our cost base. And again, ensuring us we're as efficient as we possibly can, and that's creating the right environment for our people. So again, metal prices are always a risk for our business, but our hedge to that is having an engaged workforce that's being the very best that it can. Another part of that is from a resource perspective, is ensuring we're reinvesting back into the assets to keep what I call track in front of the train. We need to replace the resources that we consume, and that is a big focus for us as well. We're very aggressive in our exploration programs from a spend perspective, and as we go forth, we will continue along that track, because if we're not exploring, we're not finding. If we're not finding, we're basically going to run the business out of what's key to its continued success, which is the resource. So, again, that's why we're very focused on exploration, why we have a significant amount of our free cash flow that is dedicated to resource replacement as well. And from a holistic perspective, the rule of thumb that I use is that an industry leading level of investment would probably be in around that $100 an ounce produced. So for a business like ours, I think it's important for us to maintain that level of investment regardless of the metal prices. So $100 an ounce produced is a good rule of thumb in my mind for exploration spend. There's always a level of political change risk in any business. So whether it be in Nicaragua or Nevada or Newfoundland, there's always changes in the environment and the political landscape, as it were. We can go from right to left, left to right. We can see different external pressures being brought to bear within the space. But what I've always found is that regardless of where you're operating, the communities in which you work with are critically important to the sustained, continued, existence, growth, presence of a business. So, one of the things we do focus on is ensuring that we are very overt and public about the commitments we make in terms of our communities and local stakeholders, and then we ensure we deliver into those. Because regardless of whether we're a Republican, going to a Democrat government, or whatever it may be, is the communities will endear, and if they see us as a good business partner, someone that they can trust and respect, then when they see those changes, or those changes occur, they will always be on our side. Now, they're always going to be somewhat opportunistic and looking for opportunities for us to be able to help them out and do things, which is we understand that's human nature. But at the end of the day, if there's a risk to us going away as a consequence of a political change, they will be there to support us. And that kind of figures into probably the last one, which is regulatory change as well, which is kind of implicitly tied with political moves. right? Is that, again, we will see as we mature as an industry that there's going to be more constraints, there's going to be more regulation placed on those industries. And so we need to be obviously looking for opportunities to improve our efficiencies, to be able to pay for those things, because typically those things comes with cost, but also that, ensuring that we maintain good stakeholder relationships as well externally to the business, whether it be with the governments or whether it be with our local communities, to be able to work through those changes in process so that, we can end up with a public consultation period for a permitting. And it's ensuring that people understand what we're doing, they have confidence in the things we say we're going to do, which facilitates approval of permits. So I guess as a kind of a recap, it's about, we're price takers from a gold price perspective, so we need to ensure that we're efficient across the business. We need to keep track in front of the train, which means we need to consistently maintain a consistent level of investment into exploration. And then you have the political exposure that exists in the business. And that's about ensuring you engage with, respectful for all of your stakeholders, and in particular, the communities and the local areas in which you operate.
And what new areas or opportunities is Calibre Mining exploring for growth?
Yeah, no, we've been very successful over the last 4 years with our organic growth opportunities, and now we've got a fantastic opportunity here with the purchase of Marathon Gold and the continued development and birthing of Valentine Gold for some inorganic growth opportunities. But again, as I've highlighted a couple of times, exploration is a huge opportunity for us. So continuing to explore and look for that opportunity to increase our reserve base, which will give us a couple of things. One of them, optionality to be able to demonstrate longer lives, even though we've shown and demonstrated in Nicaragua that we've had assets that have been in consistent production since the 1930s, is that to be able to put a reserve in front of people so they have an increased level of confidence that's terribly important to the business. And that'll also lead into, in Nicaragua, leveraging off the 1 million tons of surplus mill capacity that exists at Libertad. We've guided consolidated this year 275 to 300,000 ounces a year of production, and we're comfortable with those estimates, but that's still with 1 million ton of surplus capacity at Libertad. Putting it in perspective, that surplus capacity is 2 times the installed capacity at Limon, and Limon is a 60 to 70,000 ounce a year producer. So the latent capacity that's sitting there from exploration success to be able to leverage off that mill capacity is significant from a production perspective, but more importantly from a free cash flow perspective. And what's very topical right now, of course, is the building and bringing to production the Valentine Gold Mine in Newfoundland, Labrador. And we're in a great position as we sit today. We've got a great team in place now at the asset. We're 2/3 built. We're 98% engineered. We have a high level of confidence in our ability to deliver into Q2 2025 production. So bring that into the production fold will be key for us over the next 6 to 12 months. And people will be able to participate in that re-rate opportunity that comes as a consequence of Calibre demonstrating the ability to be able to deliver into those commitments and growing into a quality mid-tier producer.
Talking with Ryan King, the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development and Investor Relations, CalibreMining.com, by the way. Ryan, let's talk about how technology is reshaping the way Calibre Mining works.
Well, it's interesting, as you know, during COVID, everyone was working from home. Yeah. And a critical component of any business are appropriate levels of meetings, but meetings so that every department knows what's going on with everyone else. So, we're all using the internet in forms of Zoom calls or Teams meetings. It allows for less business travel, so hopefully a reduction in expenses. But also, we're starting to look at new ways to communicate to our investors, whether that be using some form of artificial intelligence to help us craft a message, whether it be different forms of social media for a different demographic or a different generation, right? So there's a few aspects there. In the mining space, though, yet, we haven't seen transformational change. However, one of the things that's pretty exciting that we're looking into now is artificial intelligence with regards to exploration and targeting new opportunities.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a firm here in Vancouver that has done quite a bit of work in machine learning, adding multiple layers of earth sciences to this program such that it learns and it continues to learn how to identify, in our case, gold deposits within the layers of information that we'll give it. I'll give you an example. Geophysical information. We'll put this into the model, and based on the geophysical information and the deposits that have been discovered, it helps to learn where new targets could be on that property. But as you add layers of science, and as we'll call it the machine, continues to learn from other projects, it helps become stronger. And so that's something that we're looking into to see if it could reduce our cost of discovery ounce, right? So that's important. And it's, that's one of the most challenging things in our business is we're on a hamster wheel. You know what I mean? What I mean is we're mining and it's not there forever.
Yeah.
So unless we discover more, we are off that hamster wheel, right? So we continuously have to take operating cash flow and reinvest it back into our assets such that we have a sustainable future. Otherwise, we're going out and acquiring assets. And that's not a bad thing either,
Right.
especially if you can do it creatively and at the right time. But you're always going to try and find opportunities at your existing producing assets to continue with those assets. It's for the community, it's for a country, it's for the government, obviously for the business as well. So,
Are you looking at teaming up with any other companies?
well, it's a great question because that is one of the critical drivers for Calibre since we started the business, right? Let's go back to 2019, right? So we weren't looking to go too drastically far from where we were. So operating as an exploration company in Central America, Nicaragua, we were able to strike a deal with B2 that was a win-win deal, right? What I meant by that was we were solely focused on these assets, and B2 was a very large and growing company developing assets all around the world. Calibre comes in and looks at the assets a little differently. We were able to strike a deal. They were our largest shareholder and still are, and they've benefited from the work that we have done on those assets. And we have benefit because it's created a platform for us from which to grow. In 2019, we were anticipating producing 50 to 70,000 ounces that first year. We ended up producing 136,000 ounces. And on the back of that, we've grown 28% production growth annually since that time. And now, because of our strong balance sheet, we just completed a deal with Marathon Gold to acquire the Valentine Gold Mine in Newfoundland, Canada, which completely transforms the company. And just to talk a little bit about that, and what I mean by completely transforming the company is this year we're going to produce 275 to 300,000 ounces from our existing assets. We identified Valentine as an opportunity because of how far along it is on its development and progress. So permitted, at the time that we acquired it, over 50% through construction. So what it was a win-win, again, a win-win deal because there was a company that had a need. Their need was cash to continue to develop the property. Their need was also an operating expertise. That was a junior company with no production. We come in, we have the operating expertise with Darren and his team, and so we can unlock value that way. For our shareholders, for Calibre shareholders, we can unlock value because we're diversifying the portfolio. We're in Central America. Now we're going to probably 60% of our NAV or net asset value is coming out of North America. So it's a tremendous shift for us from a diversification perspective, but also we're going from a junior gold producer to a mid-tier gold producer. So we should see a pretty significant re-rating in the valuation, assuming we deliver everything as expected.
What are the main goals for Calibre Mining for the rest of 2024 and a couple of years after that?
Sure. So as you know, Calibre is a junior gold producer, and this year our guidance is 275 to 300,000 ounces of production. So clearly a goal for us is to deliver on that gold production and do it at an all-in sustaining cost of $1,275 to $1,375 as the guidance we've given.
Right.
At $2,350 gold, that's going to generate a lot of free cash flow for the company. But at the same time, we have 130,000 meters of drilling this year. So that's very exciting because every year we deplete our reserves and resources. We have to look at ways of finding new ones to replace and hopefully significantly increase the resource and reserve base, which can add a lot of value to our net asset value of the business. So that's a goal for us, is to replace and to significantly increase, if we can, with drilling. But at the same time, we're building Atlantic Canada's largest open pit gold mine. So it's constant progression of that project throughout the year. And by H1 of next year, we anticipate to be in production at the Valentine Gold Mine.
Last question, why is now a great time to invest in Calibre Mining?
Well, it's a transformational year for us, right? As I mentioned, we're going from a junior producing 275 to 300,000 ounces a year to a mid-tier that'll be 400 to 500,000 ounces a year. So oftentimes a company will significantly re-rate on the back of that transformation. You know, going from a kind of a 0.5 price to NAV to a 1 times price to NAV. At a mid-tier, you're often priced closer to 1 times price to NAV. So I think it's a very good time because of this transformational year. Because if we do deliver this, and I would anticipate we will, because we've delivered for 17 quarters since becoming a gold producer. And Darren Hall is such a good operator, and he has so much experience and expertise building assets and delivering assets around the world when he was with Newmont. But I believe through this transition, we will re-rate on the back of this new asset, diversifying the portfolio where 60% of our NAV will be in North America. And Valentine is fully funded.
Thank you for watching. For more stock, investing, and corporate information on Calibre Mining, visit their website at calibremining.com.